Hi everyone, welcome back to my garden. So we are officially entering, I guess, early fall. It's been a long time since I planted anything, so it's nice to bring some new things in and do a little bit of planting, because I always think that's the fun part of gardening, is the planting part. So I'm going to be planting several different shrubs today, which run a very wide range of varieties. So the first one is along here. Now this is a part of the yard that you guys don't see very often. This is my neighbor's shed behind us. And so this is right along our lot line, along the driveway. And right behind me, we actually had to have a spruce taken out maybe a month ago or so, midsummer. Unexpectedly, we actually had, our neighbor had our favorite tree cutters in because they had a big storm rip through and lost a whole bunch of trees. And all of a sudden, what happened to be while he was here, we looked up and saw this spruce with a giant hook on the top of it. Like the whole top of the thing was at a, you know, a pretty good angle. It sort of looked like a Dr. Seuss tree. So we talked to him a little bit about it while it was here, and basically it might have been fine, but it might not have been fine. And if that spruce tree, which is one of our really big spruces, fell, it was gonna fall right on our neighbor's shed and on a lot of other trees and cause a whole bunch of other damage. So we took the opportunity while he was here to just quick have him take that tree down. So suddenly we were left with a rather large gaping hole, which is the hole that you see behind me. So that actually is okay, because I sort of had a rough plan for this area anyway. So let me move the camera out a little bit so you can get a better feel for what's happening over here. So the road is over here now, so you get some perspective of where we are. This is the south edge of our property. And behind me, you see this is a quite wooded area, and this is just where you know, our neighbors keep some of their equipment over here and have a mulch pile over here, all of which is totally fine. We don't look at this area that often. And you can see that we actually have a mulch pile here. Anytime we have trees cut down, we always have them leave the chips. And that is sort of just where the chips have landed, so to speak. Ideally, I would keep these in a different spot farther away so I would never have to look at them, especially when I drive into the driveway. But this is a very convenient location for moving them around. So if someday we finally get around to getting some sort of tractor type equipment, this could be moved and this wouldn't be an issue. But that's not happening anytime soon. So let's talk about what we're doing now. And that is planting 3 of these. This is Bottlebrush buckeye, and I'm going to show you where I put them, and then we'll talk more about the plants. So the first one is going to go right here, which will shield the shed a little bit. And then we're going to put another one right about here, and one more further down the road towards the driveway garden that I built 3 years ago. So this is Aesculus parviflora, also known as Bottlebrush buckeye, which is much nicer to roll off the tongue. So this is a native shrub to the southeastern United States, but it grows equally well in northern areas as well. It's not a very fussy plant. It wants some pretty consistent moisture, and my understanding is it will grow in almost any soil, but it would prefer a slightly acidic soil. So I will be amending my soil when I plant this to add in some soil acidifier for the time being, and hopefully over the time it will acclimate to our more alkaline soil, but I will continue adding the soil acidifier if need be over the years. So this is a big plant, and if you haven't heard of it, that might be why, because you need to give this guy room to roam. In fact, it spreads by suckers, and I think you can see that a little bit just by the habit that you see in the pot, which is these stems sort of popping up on edges of the pot. So that's what you need to know, is this thing is going to sort of almost colonize, which in this area is exactly what I'm looking for. But don't put this in the middle of your garden and expect it to not take over, because it will. So definitely this is one of those times you want to make sure you are putting this in the right place. Now this is just the straight species. There is a version, a cultivar called Rogers, which my understanding is extremely similar, except that it flowers a little bit later than this one. I'm just lucky to have found these. It is not an easy shrub to find, and I think because it's not super glamorous, and obviously it needs to have the right place for it. And so my guess is that garden centers are a little hesitant to sell this to people because next thing you know, it will take over the yard. So it is a pretty slow grower though, so there won't be anything happening super quick, but I think once it gets going, it'll do its thing. It has these great leaves on it. If you're familiar with any of the buckeyes, you know they have these great sets of 5 leaves. It gets long pointy flowers on it, white pointy flowers on it early in the year. Is said to have great fall color, and if you're lucky you might get some buckeye nuts out of it. I'm a Wisconsin Badger, so the only buckeyes that I approve of are the chocolate ones. I had a roommate in college who was from Ohio, and her mother would bring these peanut butter chocolate balls, and I was a Ohio fan from then on. However, when we're talking about football, that's a different story. In any case, this is what I think is one of these sort of underused plants because it's really good. And I had always had an interest in this plant. Last year when I went to Pennsylvania, it was planted in a lot of places, and it is an eye catcher, and it keeps those flowers for a long, long time. So to me, it just was a really nice possible plant to grow over here. Oh, here's the other thing. It can handle a wide variety of sun conditions, from full sun to pretty shady. And this area is definitely a part sun or part shade location because it does get a fair amount of sun. Now we're in the sun's pretty low in the sky these days. In midsummer, there's a lot more sun in this area. So I think this will actually do really well here. If there is any concern I have for over here, in addition to the alkaline soil issue, which I don't think is going to be that big of a deal, our soil over here is really quite sandy, so I will really have to keep up on the watering. But I am going to, rather than amend the hole with much, which I'll show you what I'm going to put in there, I'm just going to keep organic matter going on top of this as a mulch over the years, which will eventually get worked in. So that'll be compost as a mulch. I will obviously, today I'll use some of these great wood chips that I have for a mulch for now. And that is how I will hopefully get some more moisture built up in this soil and some more moisture retaining soil over the years. So 3 of these are going in. So I have already dug the hole for the first one because I am planting this in an area with a lot of tree roots. And if you've ever planted a shrub near tree roots, you know that you might have to change your position. So let's get that first one in the ground. So I forgot to talk to you guys about size for this plant. So again, the range of sizes varies. I would say it's likely that I'll be slightly on the smaller side growing it here. If you were growing this in its native area, I would definitely sort of lean on the side of the larger size. So 6 feet tall, I would say I'm seeing in various sources anywhere from 6 feet tall to 15 feet tall. And for width, I'm seeing anywhere from 6 feet up to almost 20 feet. Now, of course, it's a suckering shrub. So when they say width, they're meaning all those suckers, and that's in who knows however many years. So I'm definitely thinking probably for height, this is probably going to end up in the 6 to maybe 8 foot range. I'm just guessing over time. But I am keeping this away from the lot line because it is going to, I mean, obviously you can't pick which direction it spreads in. So it is going to spread a bit. And I don't want my neighbor to have to worry about this growing onto their property. So I am sort of placing this out a little farther, even though I'm envisioning this as a lot line planting. Okay, so I'm not going to put much in this hole. Now, we've talked about this before. This is the Organic Mechanics Biochar blend. You've seen me throughout this summer putting this in with some of my plantings. I incorporated it into the new garden area, and we'll do a tour on that soon. I don't know if it's the biochar blend or what, but that garden has grown so amazingly well. Those plants have grown so much this year that if it is the biochar blend, I'm all for it. But this is a great amendment to anywhere, and this is all I have left of it. I wish I had more left. This is all I have left, so I'm going to put a bit of that in the hole. This will add nutrients over the long term and moisture. It's not a fertilizer. But it will have moisture retentive properties in there, and you only have to add it once. You never have to add it again. So if I had more, I would have, I mean, technically that hole should have had a little bit more. Now this is the soil acidifier, and I am gonna put a couple handfuls of that in there as well, as we mentioned. And I'm just gonna mix that in a little bit. Otherwise, I don't ever really talk about amending planting holes. It's really not something that's recommended anymore. It used to be, but it's not anymore. And I have already taken this one out of its pot because I wanted the pot for to put the soil in. Now, this is a big deal for me. I always, as long as I can, like to put the plant in and fill the entire hole with water. I think this is a really good way to get the roots really nice and well soaked before you do this. And then we'll water again afterwards. But I think this is really key to planting. And it's particularly helpful if you have a situation where you can't easily get water to an area frequently to water that. So you make sure that these roots are really well saturated when you plant so that there's not that initial stress. So we're going to fill up this hole, and I anticipate it will take a long time to fill up because this is really well drained soil here. I forgot to tell you the best part about this, at least for me. It's deer resistant. So I can plant this over here and not have to worry that the deer are going to decimate it, probably. I will say my neighbor has one of these down the road and they have no problems with deer with it. So I feel pretty good that our deer here will not develop a taste for it. I'm not sure I could switch more dramatically to something else in the same shrub category. From that Bottlebrush buckeye to this new rose from Proven Winners. It is literally the antithesis of Bottlebrush buckeye, which is wild and crazy and gets all spready and out of bounds. And then you've got this really nice new rose. So this is Ringo rose, new this year from Proven Winners. It gets yellow flowers, single flowers, with a bright pink center, and then the flowers fade out. And you can see these few flowers that are on here right now have faded out to cream, basically. Hardy down to zone 4, which is fabulous, and there is a scent to these flowers, which I find more and more important for me when I'm looking at a rose. This is new for Proven Winners this year, but it's been in Europe for a long time and has won all kinds of awards over there. So this should be a really good performer. Now, this rose gets to be a pretty big rose, 3 to 4 feet. I guarantee you it will not get 3 to 4 feet for me. No rose ever gets as big as it's supposed to get for me. So I am putting this in a full sun spot along the path. So I'm going to tuck this rose in along the path. I've got White Wands Veronica growing over here. I've got some penstemon over here. And in between all that, I have a bunch of annuals growing. Some celosia, I had to actually pull some out. There is a cosmos down here that still hasn't bloomed. And then I've got this self-seeded nicotiana here. So I'm trying to make this particular part of the garden be filled in with more perennials and shrubs this year. I am trying to limit the number of places where I'm relying quite so heavily on annuals. I will always have areas of my garden that are specifically reserved for annuals and dahlias and things like that. But this little area, I'm trying to find some more easy care items to put in this area. So I'm going to tuck this rose right in here. This is the Blue Magoo spruce. And I think this will work tucked right in here by the white wands. I think that'll be a nice combination. For some reason, I'm sort of settling on yellow and white and dark foliage in this area. I don't really know how I ended up going that direction, but it's just what my eye has been sort of drawn to for this area. So this will be a good addition right here. So the next shrub I'm going to be planting is this one. This is My Monet Purple Effect. Now you guys might be familiar with the My Monet Weigela. It was a really popular, still is, a very popular Weigela. And this is another one in that series. This one's going to be slightly bigger. It's going to grow 18 to 30 inches. And the purple effect, I believe, is because the edges get a little bit tinged more purple, and I believe the flower is a little bit more purple on this one. It's hardy. It's got a pretty narrow hardiness range. It's only hardy in zones 4 to 6, so this is definitely one for those of you who garden in colder zones. And it's part sun to full sun. The My Monet takes even a part shady spot in my experience. It doesn't flower as well, but obviously this is something that you're growing a lot for the foliage as well as for the flowers. So I'm going to be growing this on the north side of the house, and I'm going to show you why I picked. Now, when I say the north side of the house, by the way, it's still a fairly sunny location over here. It's not attached to the house, it's just north of the house, basically. So let me show you why I'm going to be putting this plant here. Okay, so I've showed you this part of the garden before, although not recently, not this year yet. And this is mostly shrubs here. So we've got some great spireas in here. This is Glow Girl, birch leaf spirea in here. There's a couple of those. Those got a hard pruning last year. They had gotten quite big, and I thought that they could use a good pruning, so they got a hard pruning. There's another spirea beyond that, and then I've got two over here. Both of these are blue kazoo spireas, which is a much rangier spirea than these other ones, but a great plant, and I really love it. So you might recall that there used to be a Venus dogwood growing right over here. I loved that tree. It was so great, but in our really tough winter 2 years ago, I lost about half of it. It barely came back. I finally decided to get rid of it, and what we've planted in its place is a tricolor beech. That's new this year. It had a rough ride home. It was super windy. It was the day actually that we had that big flood. So I'm driving on the side roads because I can't stand watching that tree whip around in the wind behind me. It's the worst. I'm doing 30 miles an hour in a 55-mile-an-hour area. There's a car coming by me. He is just going to have to go around. Today I brought that home from the nursery. It's actually a little crispy right now. I think it'll be fine. I'm just keeping up really carefully on the watering. It does have protection from hot afternoon sun, which is key with tricolor beeches. And one of the reasons I picked that plant was that last year or the year before, when I mentioned that Venus dogwood was not doing good, several people commented that I should put something with a red leaf there, and I completely agree. It was a great suggestion. So it looked like the perfect spot finally for that tricolor beech. I'm not happy with what else is going on in this garden. Now, one of the reasons that tricolor beech is over there and not right here on this corner where it would be great is that we have a portion of our septic system is here. I don't know, some sort of tank. I don't try to learn a lot about septic systems, but we have a tank underneath here. And that tank is getting older, and there is a good chance that one of these years we are going to have to dig up this area to repair or replace that tank. So I am very cognizant of never planting anything in this area that can't easily be lifted, and obviously a tree would be among those. So I only really put shrubs or perennials in this area in case, because I think it's probably inevitable that at some point we'll have to do that. So when we do that, it's pretty easy for me to just lift things up and temporarily heal them in, and I won't lose anything major that I have a big investment with, like a tree. Now, let me show you what's going on here. On this corner right here are three very Van Ordinaire hostas. These are hostas that I got from another gardener, probably my mom. Right when I started gardening, she was getting rid of them. There's nothing special about these hostas. In fact, there's a lot wrong with these hostas. One, they're in too much sun right here. Two, they're just not very healthy plants. They get a ton of slug damage. They always look terrible. The deer eat these first. Out of all the hostas in the yard, they always eat these first. I have never really liked these plants here, but I have not removed them because I've not had anything like really better to put there. Well, I'm done with that attitude, because what I've learned is that if I have a plant in a spot, even if I don't like that plant, I'm less likely to go seeking out a replacement for it. And we desperately need some color in this area. This is just, even with the nice brightness of the spirea, this is just all way too green right here. It's just kind of a big green blob. So we're going to, and you do have to be careful with variegation. You don't want too much variegation, but this has a lot of the same. It's got that pink tone in it. It's got that dark green in it. This picks up some of the coloration from the tricolor beech. And I thought if I pull out these hostas, now there used to be 5, now there's only 3. If I pull these hostas out and put this in this corner, and then I've got some room to plant some other perennials around there. I'm thinking about maybe like a pink salvia would be great in there. Then this corner brightens up. So anyways, we're gonna pull these out, and these are just gonna get dumped. These are headed for the compost pile. These are not plants worth saving as far as I'm concerned. So dig those out. We're gonna plant this, set it back a little bit, and then we'll have some nice area for some perennials in the future. But I think it'll be a huge improvement in this bed and a way to bring the colors from the tricolor beech over here, maybe make this bed a little bit more cohesive and a little bit more interesting, particularly at this time of year. It will get quite beautiful once we get some fall color going. I've got some geranium macrorrhizum over here. That spirea gets gorgeous color in fall. In fact, all these spireas do. And even the hostas behind there, where are looking a little crispy, those will get that great yellow color. So this is actually a beautiful fall bed, but right now, late summer, it's pretty boring. So let's dig these out. So I will fill this area in with mulch for now, just to keep that soil all protected and get some moisture going for that shrub. And then we'll decide what perennials should be through here. But definitely some perennials will help spark up this part of the garden, I think. Over here, I just want to quickly show you, I did change this bed line a little bit this year. And I want to fill in this area because I widened this a touch. So I divided some geranium macrorrhizum from another part of the garden and just popped in little divisions. That was in spring. Look how much it has filled in already. It's a bit of a weed right here. Plenty of those here. But just look how well that's filled in now. It does flower a bit, but it gets great fall color, and I think it's a great texture in the garden. But what a handy plant to have around, because I have as many as I did before, and then I divided it and it's over here. So I love spreading geranium macrorrhizum around. It grows in sun, shade, dry sun, dry shade, wet shade. It pretty much grows anywhere you can put it. So here's that new corner with the new Weigela. Do you guys think you were going to get out of a shrub planting video without a hydrangea involved? Of course not. You know me better than that. I do have a hydrangea. This one is Fire Fab. This is a new version of the Fire hydrangea, which is an excellent hydrangea. This guy's big, gets 6 to 8 feet tall. Going to get panicle flowers like the other Fire, but they're going to pink up sooner and they're going to get a brighter, deeper pink. Big flowers on them. And should be a really great performer. It wants full sun, really, in most places. And that's what it's going to get here, or at least, I would say, on the border between part sun and full sun in this spot, to be honest. But this is that tree that we limbed up earlier this year in a different video. And I'm so happy we did that. Every time I limb up a tree, I wonder why I didn't do it sooner, because it always looks so much better, especially when you can get some plantings going underneath it. So I'm going to put Fire on this corner. Now this is what I've always sort of called our pink bed. I put a lot of pink flowering plants in here, but I've never really designed it, and I've mostly just sort of used things as they pop up. I've never really gone out and shopped for plants specifically for this garden. They just sort of come here. And so this garden is evolving differently than other areas of my garden, and I think that's okay too. It's always nice to just sort of take different approaches with things. So this garden is always sort of a work in progress, but I think having something like this as a big focal point, anchor in the corner, would be a really nice addition. So you can tell just how much more sun this area is getting now by taking a look at these crispy ostrich ferns here. Beyond that, back there, you can see there are ostrich ferns growing very well behind there in the woods where it's nice and shady, but these are just in way too much sun. They put themselves there. I didn't put them there. So we'll pull those out, clean that up, clean this whole bed up. Frankly, there's a lot of weeds that need to be dealt with in here, and I really need to get around here and edge this bed because this messy edge is driving me nuts. Well, it was fun to plant such a range of different shrubs, and fun to get my hands a little dirty again. You know, you can't just survive on weeding alone, and weeding and deadheading, it feels like that's all I've been doing lately. So it was good to do some planting, and it is a really good time to do some planting. This late summer time, the soil is really warm, but the days are getting cooler. There's more moisture in the soil. It's a really good time for plants to get going. Now, there are some plants that I don't like to plant in fall. I don't love planting evergreens in fall. I haven't had a lot of luck with that. That's partly because of my zone, because it is so cold here. But most things, and perennials too, you can plant things. You really want about 6 weeks before the ground freezes. So the ground freezes quite a bit after you have your first frost usually. So we've got plenty of time here for these things to get nice and established. The key is make sure you keep up on the watering. My rule for new shrubs and trees is I water basically every other day for the first week, week and a half, 2 weeks, somewhere in there. Then I go to twice a week, and then I go to once a week, unless it's a really stressful time, and then I'll adjust according to rain or if it gets too hot or whatever. But you want to keep watering those plants right up until the ground is frozen, not just until that first frost, but right up until it freezes, because plants will continue to take up water during that time. And in my experience, the less stressed a plant is going into winter, the more likely it is to make it through that winter, regardless of what that winter is like. A happy plant going into winter is probably going to do okay, as long as it's hardy for that zone, although of course things can happen. But it is a really good time to throw some shrubs in the garden and some perennials. And if I can find some perennials to fill in some of these spots, I think I'll look for that too, because now I feel a little bit rejuvenated about a couple of these areas in the garden that were looking a little iffy. So anyway, I hope you're having a great day in your garden. I hope you enjoyed seeing some of these shrubs, and let me know if you guys are doing any shrub planting this late summer. And we'd love to hear what you guys are into planting. So have a great day. We'll see you soon.